The Silent Hill series, like any long-running video game franchise, has seen its fair share of cancelled and scrapped releases, with some of these cancelled games being incredibly iconic, despite not ever being fully released. Looking into all of the cancelled games from this series is just fascinating, as we can see how different some Silent Hill games could have been. That is why today for you, I'm going to be explaining the cancelled Silent Hill game.
720.
Games iceberg.
Okay.
The iceberg holds 5 layers of cancelled Silent Hill games, and as we go deeper and deeper, the games become progressively more obscure and unknown. So allow me to be your guide for today, as we explore this obscure and forgotten part of the franchise's history. To kick things off, we will start at the top layer, the Sky, which holds one of the most infamous cancelled video games of all time. PT Silent Hills. PT, which stands for Playable Teaser, is probably the most well-known cancelled video game of all time. This title took the internet and the games industry by storm, and the way it was cancelled only added to its infamy. This was set to be the next big Silent Hill release, after Silent Hill Downpour in 2000.
I know they cancelled it and it was disappointing, but I feel like, you know, they got the game out there, everybody already played it, like, it was already like a moment. They didn't need anything else. I feel like it was good as it is, like, you know what I mean?
2012. It was being developed by legendary game director Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid fame. Additionally, film director Guillermo del Toro would be working on this title as well.
Really?
And aside from just that pair, iconic manga artist Junji Ito had talked to
Holy fuck! I didn't know. Oh my god.
the pair about being involved with the title, although he never put pen to paper for PT. PT was a playable teaser that was available to download for users on the PlayStation 4 store. It was released on August 12th, 2014 under a Fake Game Studios name.
Cool.
And this took over the internet and left a huge, long-lasting impact on the horror genre. It follows a simple gameplay setup. Players walk through a hallway continually in a loop, in what looks to be a very average-looking home. Players experience the demo's horror gradually as they continue to walk in this loop. The game's main antagonist that can be encountered, Lisa, is a terrifying woman who always makes my skin crawl. You can encounter her multiple times throughout playing this demo, and each time you encounter her, it scares you even more than it did last time. The Sink Baby is also a horrifying creature you can encounter in this demo. It appears as a bloody, undeveloped fetus, which can be found in the bathroom sink. Throughout the demo, randomly, the baby will cry and scream in pain, which absolutely just pierces your ears. And if that wasn't already horrifying and overwhelming, additionally, a radio can be heard playing throughout the house. It features a radio presenter recounting a horrific family murder on loop as you walk through the house. And for me at least, this has always really disturbed me, continually hearing the gruesome details.
Is he gonna say that he's really scared from every game?
Of a father murdering his entire family really starts to get to you. And it's not just an average police report of a crime either. The details shared from the presenter seem to be ones only the perpetrator of the crime could know, which makes the radio that much more terrifying. The radio is seen as the backing soundtrack to exploring this demo, only occasionally cutting out or being interrupted by the Sink Baby's agonizing screams. And that, in a nutshell, is the gameplay loop of PT. And this simple idea is incredibly effective. Players can begin to feel very familiar with the house and its layout, so when something moves or changes, it's even more obvious. Along with that, this game delivers such a paranoid feeling to players, which I find is amplified by the game being set in a very normal looking home, a location that we are all familiar with. Its photorealistic graphics for the time also add to this. This demo's approach to scaring the player, I at least have found to be one of the scariest video games I have ever seen. Critically, at the time, PT was showered in praise, and it seemed to be the next big thing from Hideo Kojima after Metal Gear Solid, along with being the next big step in the Silent Hill franchise. Upon beating the demo, it's revealed that this game's actual title is Silent Hills, with the main protagonist set to be played by actor Norman Reedus of Walking Dead fame. The PT demo itself isn't related to what the actual release of Silent Hills would be like. This is directly stated in the ending of the demo. Think of PT itself as a proof of concept. However, like I said earlier, this is a cancelled Silent Hill game's iceberg, and thus, in 2015, Silent Hills was cancelled and Konami pulled PT from the PlayStation Store. This was a result of Konami firing Hideo Kojima over concerns of him overusing budget for the Metal Gear series.
Kojima? They did you like that?
Along with Konami themselves shifting their focus away from the AAA games market in pursuit of the mobile game space. So with a messy ending with one of gaming's most influential minds, Silent Hills would never see the light of day. With PT becoming such an icon in the games industry, it was a shock that overnight it became lost media in a way, with some PlayStation 4 consoles that had PT installed on them being listed on eBay for over $1,000, which demonstrates how revered PT was. Currently, PT is only playable if you had previously downloaded it off the PlayStation Store. There has been a fair few fan remakes developed and published online.
Wait, what?
And there is definitely some
You
good
actually can't play it anymore?
ones out there. However, nothing will be quite like the original. Little is known of what Silent Hills would have been like, and had Kojima and Konami not split up in 2015, I'm sure that the Silent Hill franchise would have been very different than it is now. And it's such a shame that this game never got to see the light of day, especially considering just how influential the PT demo was. As for the horror scene, this demo inspired countless indie horror games going forward. However, as it is, PT will always be remembered as an incredible demo that was ripped away from us far too soon. How it could have changed the Silent Hill series had Silent Hills been released will be a mystery that the fanbase will continue to ponder.
That's crazy.
Wrapping up with PT, we will now be descending a layer of the iceberg, moving down now to the surface layer, which is home to 3 cancelled Silent Hill games. This layer features some very interesting games, from Team Silent's planned 5th game to 2 scrapped versions of actually released Silent Hill games. The surface layer has some entries that big fans may have heard about, but as we go deeper and deeper, that may change. Silent Hill Original Sin. Silent Hill Original Sin was the working title for Silent Hill Origins. This will be the first Silent Hill game not developed by Team Silent, and with that came enormous amounts of pressure for the developers. Initially, Silent Hill Original Sin was being handled by Climax's LA studio. However, it wasn't progressing along smoothly. This original version of Silent Hill Origins is such an oddity to me. In early 2006, a trailer for the game leaked online. This trailer is a rather simple teaser to show that there is a new Silent Hill game in development. Looking at the main protagonist Travis, we can see him staring at himself in the mirror. That seems to be a clear nod to the intro sequence from Silent Hill 2. There was additionally some early gameplay demos of this game. We can see that in its camera style, it seemed to be inspired by Resident Evil 4. Those RE4 inspirations can be seen even more in the game's firearms, as they all have laser sights on them. This over-the-shoulder demo was shown off in August 2006, and outside of this gameplay
I probably wouldn't have played it.
Demo, the devs were also looking to change up the Silent Hill gameplay formula a fair bit. The classic radio mechanic was overhauled in this game. Due to this release being planned for the PlayStation Portable, the devs couldn't account for users to always have the sound on while playing, given that it's a handheld system. So the audio-based radio system will be changed to a visual indicator. This will be done via the chilled breath system. When enemies were nearby, Travis will begin to shiver and his breath will become visible. If multiple enemies were nearby, the edges of the screen would become frosty and the game overall would receive a blue tint. While this was a cool concept, the game's troubled development ultimately left this mechanic on the cutting room floor. Another scrap game mechanic was the barricade system. With this system, players could barricade enemies from rooms they are in using nearby items. This could serve to not only keep you safe, but also as a puzzle mechanic of sorts, as players would need to carefully decide what room they should trap enemies in order to keep themselves the safest. This mechanic, along with the chilled breath system, was never seen in a demo and was ultimately cut from the game. Behind the scenes, things were not progressing well at all. Initially, Silent Hill Original Sin was slated for a late 2006 release date. However, given its state in August 2006, that was highly unlikely. So in October of that same year, the game was passed off to Climax's UK team, led by Sam Barlow, where it would finally release as Silent Hill Origins in late 2007. And with this project being handed to a different dev team after its initial deadline, this impacted the final product we got massively. With well under a year to finish and release the game, and half the budget spent, it's a miracle that Silent Hill Origins even released to begin with. Much of the game's level design and monsters were fully redesigned going from Original Sin to Origins. Silent Hill Origins itself was received alright generally, albeit a far cry from its predecessors. But looking into this game's history and troubled development, It's a miracle it even released to begin with. Silent Hill Cold Heart. After a mostly alright reception to Silent Hill Origins, Climax Studios were given another jab at the Silent Hill series by Konami. Konami themselves were looking to develop another Silent Hill game for the PlayStation Portable, due to the handheld's large amount of users. Around the same time as Climax making their second Silent Hill game, Silent Hill's US producer, William Mortel, was pushing his own project, which was a Wii-based first-person shooter. Climax then got involved with this title, and it evolved into Brahms PD, a spin-off from the main franchise that cast players as an amnesiac police detective on the Brahms force looking for their missing partner. This is such an out there idea for the Silent Hill series, and to me at least, it's a funny coincidence that around roughly the same time, Capcom had started releasing their own first-person shooters on Wii for Resident Evil. Brahms PD didn't go far from its initial pitch. However, one of its mechanics would persist through not just Silent Hill Cold Heart, but even into the full release of Silent Hill Shattered Memories. In Brahms PD, periodically, players would meet with a police psychiatrist who would analyze the player, and based on their responses, it would change the game and the nightmare players find themselves in. This would then act like a more personal hell for each player. However, Brahms PD didn't catch Konami's attention, and it was canned. Climax liked the idea of using the Wii's hardware for a release, so they came back to Konami with a pitch for a Wii game titled Silent Hill Cold Heart. In May 2013, Climax Studios gave away several copies of the original pitch document for Silent Hill Cold Heart. This was done during a Facebook competition of theirs, and this is how we have all our information on Silent Hill Cold Heart. Cold Heart's story focused on a traumatized university student named Jessica Chambers. Jessica would explore the frozen town of Silent Hill, fighting enemies with motion control based combat. The game would feature degrading weapons, meaning players would have to scavenge for anything just to protect themselves. And in true Silent Hill fashion, Jessica would explore Silent Hill, completing puzzles that also used the Wii's motion control technology. All while Jessica has to scavenge for food and clothing supplies to keep her hunger at bay and her temperature high. These two survival mechanics I find to be a really interesting idea for a Silent Hill game, and it would have been interesting to see how these mechanics would have been implemented. In line with these realistic mechanics, the game's inventory system would deviate from Silent Hill norm. Jessica's inventory system would be limited to what she could realistically carry on her person. So what items could realistically fit into her pockets or bag is a cool realism idea, although it is very different to the Silent Hill norm. And finally, the classic radio mechanic would receive a modern twist, as Jessica would get a cell phone.
Cool.
This could be used to warn players of nearby enemies, as it would emit a loud static interference noise. The cell phone would also be utilized like a normal phone to call numbers found throughout the game. This is something that would be brought forward into Silent Hill Shattered Memories. Cold Heart also adopted the psychological profiling system that was initially a part of Brahms PD, and it would have Jessica meet with a psychiatrist throughout the game, with her responses to the therapist shaping the game and story. However, this sharp departure away from the main Silent Hill series was seen as a risk, so the producers instead altered the game to be a loose remake of the original Silent Hill, which then got the green light from Konami. The project then took on the name we know now, Silent Hill Shattered Memories, which sees Harry Mason venture through a frozen Silent Hill searching for his missing daughter Cheryl. The therapist sessions would also be featured in this game, with players being able to answer questions from Dr. Kaufman, which would then shape the characters and story. The cell phone mechanics also transferred over from Cold Heart. Both its snowy aesthetic and psychological profiling persisted from the very initial pitch back with Brahms PD, which can show you just how long and convoluted games development can be. However, as much as I do enjoy Silent Hill Shattered Memories, I have always been intrigued by Silent Hill Cold Heart. Something about its protagonist, its interesting survival and combat mechanics, and even the art that we have for the game make me wish we could have seen this one come to life. Silent Hill 5. After the release of Silent Hill 4 The Room, Team Silent will begin to work on the next and fifth installment in the Silent Hill franchise. While no gameplay or art has ever been released, or was possibly even created, there is many interviews with developers from Team Silent that point to Silent Hill 5 being an interesting shift for the franchise. In August of 2004, Eurogamer would interview both Masashi Tsubayama, the director for Silent Hill 2, and Akira Yamaoka, series composer. This interview would delve into Silent Hill 4 The Realm, the at the time upcoming Silent Hill movie, the Silent Hill series as a whole, And at the very end of the interview, there were some slight mentions of Team Silent's Silent Hill 5. At the time, some gaming sites were spreading rumors about a Silent Hill 5 already being in active development, with it having the subtitle of Shadows. This interview puts that rumor to bed, as Tsubayama says that they are not creating Shadows, although they are in fact working on the next Silent Hill game. He also says that this next Silent Hill game would be released solely on next generation hardware, which at the time neither the Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 had been released. I find it funny how in this interview, Tsubayama refers to the Xbox 360 as the Xbox 2, since it hadn't been announced yet.
Fuck?
So, utilizing next generation hardware, Team Silent had plans for how big this game could be, with less limitations compared to the PS2 era. The following year, Game World would interview Akira Yamaoka and Akihiro Imamura, the producer for Silent, for how big this game could be, with less limitations compared to the PS2 era. The following year, Game World would interview Akira Yamaoka.
Look at him go. This motherfucker's the goat right here. Look at him jamming the fuck out. A little bit behind. Oh yeah. It's like, yeah, I'm the fucking composer for Silent Hill.
And Akihiro Imamura, the producer for Silent Hill 2. This interview talks generally about the Silent Hill franchise, but then turns towards the supposed next entry in the series. When asked about Silent Hill 5, Yamaoka jokes about it even being called that. Yamaoka himself remained very tight-lipped about any details for the game, aside from it being released on next-generation hardware. However, Imamura did give us some details. He jokes that this may get him in trouble, but he says that the team were playing around with this idea of light and daylight ever since the start of pre-production on Silent Hill 2. Team Silent wanted to start the Silent Hill game in a normal environment, for example, the middle of the day as people are going about their normal lives. He even points to Jacob's Ladder and the Texas Chainsaw series as proof of daytime horror working. So seemingly, players would find themselves in a bustling normal version of Silent Hill during the day, that then gradually changes around the player and turns into the nightmarish town we know. The Otherworld was also brought up in this interview, and Imamura stated that for Silent Hill 5, they intend to have a very impressive version of it, which will be done due to the power of next generation hardware. Again, a year later, we would hear more info about this title, with Akira Yamaoka speaking with Famitsu. Again, the idea of Fear and Daylight was brought up, along with the game being stated to play like Silent Hill 2, as the team were taking a more psychological approach to its story. Yamaoka also said that he had begun working on music for the game, although the only exact details he gives us is that fans will be pleased along with him being far from finished. He is then asked to expand on the concept of scary daytime, to which Yamaoka says that it's hard to explain, but he points to Resident Evil 5's first trailer as an example. In that original trailer, Chris Redfield is seen walking through dimly lit alleyways, only to be met with this bright sun bursting through the sky. Despite it being in the middle of the day, this trailer still conveys a sense of horror and dread, and Yamaoka plans to capture this feeling with Silent Hill 5. Okay. And finally, with this interview, Yamaoka stated that Silent Hill 5 was in production, although it's not ready to be shown to the public just yet. Then, in 2007, Yamaoka would give GamePro an interview, which again touches on Silent Hill 5. But with it being 3 years since the title was originally mentioned, and with no new info or visuals to share, it's clear Silent Hill 5 didn't get off the ground much. Yamaoka in this interview states that he can't give away any details on its story or the development progress, but he reiterates that it will be like Silent Hill 2 in how its story is delivered. With Silent Hill Origins releasing in that same year, it's clear that Konami had different plans for the franchise compared to Team Silent, and with Konami Japan losing faith in Team Silent, they would disband in that same year. And the then Silent Hill 5 would be taken and handed off to an American game studio called The Collective, which Silent Hill 5 would then be showcased in summer of 2007. This teaser didn't show much, aside from a Silent Hill-esque logo and a monologue of a soldier referring to being away from home. The voice actor using this teaser seemed to be a placeholder, as he wasn't seen in the game itself. Silent Hill 5 would transform into Silent Hill Homecoming. The original devs, The Collective, merged with Shiny Entertainment and formed Double Helix, with Silent Hill Homecoming releasing the following year in 2008. The only Team Silent developer to have any involvement in this project was Akira Yamaoka, who worked on the game's soundtrack. Silent Hill Homecoming didn't really seem to have many of the ideas from the original Silent Hill 5 concept. There isn't really any daytime horror scene in the game, nor is there a large populated Silent Hill,
What the fuck?
although it does follow a similar style and presentation like Silent Hill 2 did, which was a part of that original concept. I personally would have loved to have seen Team Silent get to make the 5th Silent Hill game. I believe that they're an incredible dev team, and their interesting ideas mixed with the new hardware could have led to a really special Silent Hill game.
What happened?
With Silent Hill 5, that'll be all for this layer within the iceberg. Descending a layer now, we find ourselves in the shallows. This deeper part of the iceberg has some pretty unknown titles
Covenant?
that feature...
Wait, is that... What's here? God.
limited gameplay footage. From a forgotten demo for a Silent Hill game on the Nintendo DS to a completely forgotten experimental Silent Hill game.
Experimental LTG.
Let's see what this layer
Experimental Silent Dale
has for us.
Silent Ferris.
Silent Hill DS. In 2006, roughly around the same time as when Silent Hill Origins was shifting in its developers, WayForward Technologies pitched yet another Silent Hill handheld game to Konami.
I've played games by
However, this
WayForward.
time it would be for the Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
WayForward built a rough one-room demo that uses the James
Oh, that looks really good. I'd play the fuck out of that.
Sunderland character model and other assets from Silent Hill 2. The pitch didn't get Konami's attention. However, in 2014, this footage will come to light. As WayForward, we're doing a Kickstarter marathon for another game of theirs. The footage itself is very interesting. The character models don't look half bad for a DS game in 2006. The player character has animations, music and sound effects from Silent Hill 2 can be heard, and there is multiple different camera styles used. There was also strides to use the Nintendo DS's specific technology, such as its touchscreen. The demo has some very simple gameplay. The player can walk around collecting items and solve a basic puzzle. When interacting with everything in the room and solving the puzzle, the room shifts and transforms into the other world. The iconic Halo of the Sun logo can be seen on the floor. Above it, encased in a glass box, a disgusting fleshy creature can be seen. This disgusting creature writhes in pain, and when interacting with the glass case, the creature leaps out from it and lunges at James, presumably killing him, as the demo ends. This rough demo was thrown together in just a few weeks, and it didn't catch Konami's attention. However, WayForward would work with Konami once more on a handheld Silent Hill game, with Silent Hill Book of Memories. And it would have been interesting to see what a Silent Hill game on the Nintendo DS could have been like.
Dude, that demo looked amazing. Wait, what the fuck? Why didn't they fucking take it? It looked great. Bro.
Silent Hill Book of Memories.
What is that?
And it would have been interesting to see what a Silent Hill game on the Nintendo DS
Dude, I would have played the fuck out of that.
could have been like.
Okay.
Broken Covenant, Silent Hill PS3. Starting development alongside Silent Hill Original Sin, Climax Studios' LA office began to work on a Silent Hill title for the newly released PlayStation 3. Simply titled Silent Hill PS3, Climax were eager to work with the new PlayStation hardware, so they put together this rough gameplay demo and pitch. Silent Hill PS3 will be developed using Unreal Engine 3. The game was supposed to take place in the American Southwest, where illicit powers and corruption began to spread outside of Silent Hill. Between this game and Original Sin, it seems like Climax Studios were big fans of the original cult plotline from Silent Hill 1. Even more similarities with this game's plot to that can be seen in the main protagonist and his reason to be here, as players would assume the role of Father Hector Santos, an El Paso, Texas priest in desperate search of his 9-year-old niece Anna. Anna had been taken by the cult as a conduit for demonic rituals, as they believe she is the next Alyssa.
Bro, like, all of these games are so good. Why didn't they do, like, any of them? These are all so fire.
The gameplay demo itself is rather rough around the edges, but you can still see the vision the devs were going for. This gameplay demo features stealth sections, basic puzzles and item interaction, and it even sees the RE4 style of camera system used here, much like the one seen in the Original Sin. Many placeholder assets are used in this demo, including the main character model being Travis Grady's model, the main protagonist from Silent Hill Origins. The setting
like
of a southwestern town.
Bordering. It's like he's about to poop his pants.
Placeholder assets are used in this demo, including the main character model being Travis Grady's model, the main protagonist from Silent Hill Origins.
Yeah. Looks like a redneck. I don't know why I can't think of a redneck voice. I'm in Silent Hill, y'all.
The setting of a southwestern town and the cult plotline seems really interesting
like Midwest.
However, in its narrative, it could seem rather similar to Silent Hill 1. As for its mechanics, the barricading system, first tested in Silent Hill Original Sin, would be used here. Along with that, structures could materialize from the ground up, like a corpse being resurrected. Water would be one of the key features of this game, which the protagonist would use to purify the environment by performing holy rites and rituals. Despite the interesting setting and gameplay mechanics, Konami didn't care for SHPS 3. Climax opted to then make some tweaks to the game's narrative and change its name to Broken Covenant, which they would then pitch to Sony as an episodic release, with players being able to buy and experience hour-long episodes of gameplay, which for the time was a popular format of release. However, Sony didn't buy either, and even with a team willing to bring the game to Xbox 360 for other publishers, Broken Covenant couldn't find a home, and thus the idea would be shelved permanently.
Damn.
Which is such a shame, as I really like its initial setup, and honestly, I would have liked to see it get fully developed, although Konami thought the opposite. Now, things are starting to get progressively more hidden and unknown, as we now descend the iceberg into the depths layer. This layer of the iceberg is pretty deep. One of the games in this layer has a small bit of footage, but a strange origin, and the other we have very little information to go on. Let's see what this layer of the iceberg has for us. Silent Hill 2 Remake, Hexadrive. This game on the iceberg has an origin story and ending that most fans wish wasn't true. In 2018, Konami approached developers Hexadrive about porting the original Silent Hill games to modern consoles, something that fans have been begging for literal years. Not only was the last time Konami ported Silent Hill games a nightmare, but currently there is no easily available way to play any of the original titles on modern platforms.
I luckily got... Can I go back? I got Silent Hill 2. But I've only played Silent Hill 3 from the PC. And I got I printed out the cover. But yeah. That's fire on PS2. I've never played 4 or I played a little 1 just on emulator, but I've watched 4 get played.
And if these ports had happened, Silent Hill wouldn't have remained dormant for as long as it did. However, Hexadrive felt that Silent Hill 2 specifically deserved a complete high-fidelity remake, rather than just a simple port like Konami wanted. So the team spent a few months putting together a demo prototype to show Konami, which was labelled Silent Hill Letter from Silent Haven, a remake of Silent Hill 2. From just this small amount of released footage, we can see that Hexadrive's version of James Sunderland features his iconic patches, something that the actual remake of Silent Hill 2 would omit. The demo seems to take place within the Brookhaven apartments. The demo features minimal gameplay, as it just shows James walking around and finding items. And for a mock-up demo, it looks fairly alright. However, Konami themselves rejected the pitch, which in itself, I find this whole ordeal to be a bit strange. If a company asked you to do A, why would you give them C? It just seemed odd to me how the remake was pitched. Although, Konami didn't hate the idea of a remake of Silent Hill 2, which they would then give the Bloober team, and we would eventually get the remake of Silent Hill 2, which was pretty well received. And as for Hexadrive themselves, Konami was very impressed with the atmosphere they created for their demo, and as a result, Konami worked with Hexadrive and developed the free-to-play spin-off game Silent Hill The Short Message, which wasn't received very well.
Gave them a spin-off game?
For their demo.
This looks cool as hell, why the fuck did they do that? This is bad decision after bad decision by Konami. Why the fuck would they do that?
And as a result, Konami worked with Hexadrive and developed the free-to-play spin-off game Silent Hill.
I guess I gotta play. It's free on PS5. I gotta play it. Free-to-play spin-off game. Fuck it.
Short Message, which wasn't received very well. So it's safe to say it was a wise idea for Konami to give the remake to Bloober Team, even if at the time it didn't seem like it. Still, Hexadrive's Silent Hill 2 remake is a cool oddity. However, its origins being a failed re-release of the original games hurts me, knowing just how close we were to being able to play all those iconic games on our modern systems. Silent Hill 2013. In 2013, series art director and creature designer Masahiro Ito was commissioned by Konami to work on a Silent Hill sequel game. Masahiro Ito, being the original creator of Pyramid Head, always opposed him being used in Silent Hill games outside of Silent Hill 2. However, for this new game, Konami wanted Pyramid Head to be in it, as he was the series mascot who brought in sales. Understanding that Konami wouldn't give in to a new game without him, Masahiro Ito would make a new version of Pyramid Head and the pseudo-stalker enemy Volteal from Silent Hill 3. This was done to please Konami executives and to align with his own creative beliefs. Within this game, Volteal would kill Pyramid Head in the opening scene, a huge shock twist that I find very interesting. Outside of just this interesting direction, little else is known about this Silent Hill title, or how far along it got in development. Little has been shared from this game, aside from 3 images, which Masahiro Ito posted to his Twitter. One of these images looks to be an otherworld concept.
Really cool. Is that like a stroller or like a baby carriage?
With a baby stroller seen in the right of the image. In the background, a bridge can be seen, and the head of the bridge looks to resemble a guillotine. The new design for Pyramid Head was also shown, although this and the last image were never posted in full quality, as it seems Konami didn't want the HD art to be seen, which is strange that they were fine with the blurry versions being released. The final released image looks to be a rough sketch of the new Volteal.
That's cool shit too. This guy's the fucking goat, what the hell?
These 3 images are all we have to visualize Silent Hill 2013. This title is very unknown, and if not for Masahiro Ito making a few tweets about the game, I'm sure none of us would know of its existence.
What the hell?
And if you thought things couldn't get any more obscure,
how
then
many other like obscure games just don't get spoken about.
You would be wrong, as we now head down to the final layer of the iceberg, the bottom. This layer sees one final game for this iceberg, and it's one I bet you haven't heard about. The Box. In 2006, The Box would initially begin as a Silent Hill title to be pitched to Konami, although it is unknown if Konami ever got presented with the game. This project was being developed by Silicon Knights. The devs, soon after beginning development, partnered with Sega to produce the game instead. The Box was supposed to be an open-world, third-person survival horror experience. It was set to release for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. However, eventually, Sega would abandon the project, which it would then find a new publisher in THQ. This is where the game will be renamed to The Ritualist. From this point in development, there is no media of the project. And due to financial woes at THQ at the time, 3 years after it was initially conceived, The Box would be shelved in 2009. The released images for The Box I find rather interesting. We can see a collection of 3D models, including a normal and rusty hatchet, presumably one that would be used as a weapon, along with many different bird species. Multiple menu mockups were also made. We can see a main menu mockup which features the game's title and a large house, a setting menu mockup which again we see that same house, along with a mockup for the game's cover art, which featured the large house with a trio of agonizing skulls looming over it. There was never any gameplay shown for this title, nor did it ever properly earn the Silent Hill title. Perhaps there was a lack of confidence from the developers that led to them not showing it to Konami. However, with this title changing publisher multiple times, that led to a rocky development cycle, and thus these images is all we have for this game. With very little to go on for our narrative or setting, it's hard to imagine what The Box would have been like outside of its brief gameplay description. Could it have earned its Silent Hill name? We may never know. And that, everyone, was the cancelled Silent Hill games iceberg explained. The iceberg's many layers.
That was a cool video too.